We've talked about different ways to make your classic truck safer, and one of the ways is by taking the gas tank from inside the cab and moving it to the back of the truck inside the frame rails. Well, CJ Classic Truck has came out with their own gas tank relocation kit for the 1963 to 1972 Chevy C10, and we're going to show you it and show you how to install it. So this is the CJ's Classic Truck Fuel Tank Relocation Kit. And inside this kit, you're going to have your gas tank straps, your gas tank, your sending unit, some hardware, a gasket, and a lock ring. This is basically all you're going to need to perform this job, besides a few miscellaneous things like fuel line, clamps, and hardware. Now the reason we're relocating this gas tank is because a lot of the years, including the year C10 that we have, actually have the gas tank mounted in the cab. And as you can imagine, this is a huge safety concern, whether you end up having fuel leaking in the cab with you, fuel vapors, or even worse, if you get into an accident, it's going to cause some serious issues. Now you're probably already thinking about doing a lot of modifications to your truck. This is a pretty inexpensive modification with some good quality parts, so definitely go ahead and add this to your list. Now let's go ahead and jump into this install. Before we jump into today's install, if you have any questions about the tools that we're using, check out cjponyparts.com/tools or click the link in the corner of the video for a free video and PDF file showing you what tools you should have and how to use them properly and safely. To start off this install, we're going to go ahead, pull out the seats, and then pull out the old factory gas tank. Now that we have the bench seat out, we definitely have a lot more room in here to work. So we're going to go ahead, remove the seat belts to be able to pull back the carpet, and then start undoing the bolts to the factory fuel tank. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect the fuel line, and then we're going to remove all the bolts that hold in the factory tank. Now that we have all of the hardware removed for the factory gas tank, we're going to go underneath the truck and disconnect the soft line that goes to this hard line so we can get this out of the way as well. So as you just saw, we took the soft line off this hard line, and now we can actually pull the hard line through the cab of the truck. Just in case you couldn't see exactly how it looked under the truck, I know it was a pretty hard camera angle to get. Basically, you have this hard line that runs in from the stock fuel tank down through the cab under the truck. And then from there, a soft line is connected onto this and then runs along the frame rail and then meets up with the hard line from the front of the truck. Now before we go ahead and remove the stock fuel tank, we just have to disconnect the wire that's going to the sending unit. Now that we're done with everything inside the cab of the truck, it's time to work on the back end here. Now what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna mock the new fuel tank up and then go from there on where we have to cut and drill. Before we jump into installing this new gas tank, it is a good idea to mention that you do have to remove your bed. If you don't know how to remove your bed, we do have a YouTube video on how to remove the bed to a 67 to 72 Chevy C10. So definitely check it out if you're unsure of how to remove the bed from your C10. Now before I go ahead and put this fuel tank in here to mock it up, usually on these C10s, there's another bar that actually comes from this frame rail over to the other side. Now it's usually for your spare tire mount. Fortunately, we don't have that on ours, so I don't have to worry about it, but more than likely at home, you're still gonna have that. It's gonna be held on by some rivets, so you're gonna wanna knock those rivets out and then pull that bar out, and then your gas tank will fit in that correct area. All right, so now go ahead, grab your jack, throw a piece of wood on the top of it here so we don't end up smashing a hole through our new fuel tank, and then now we just gotta put the fuel tank in the middle and hoist it up. All right, now that the gas tank's in here, we're just gonna pick it up and then scoot the jack under while doing so. All right, now let's get this into place. Now that our gas tank is in place, there's a couple things you're gonna need to pay attention to. For one, you're gonna want the gas tank to be as far over as possible and against this support here, mainly because we're already gonna be running into some clearance issues when we go to put the bed back on, and this will definitely help out. Next thing that we needed to do is actually go ahead and cut into the frame so there's enough room for the filler neck as well. So let's go ahead and mark that up and then start cutting into it. Before you go ahead and mark the frame on where to cut, keep in mind that you're gonna have to put a rubber hose over the end here for the filler neck, so give a little bit of extra room when you're actually making your mark to cut. As you can see, we got our hole cut and it's all cleaned up. Now, since it's bare metal, we're gonna throw some paint on it to prevent any rust from happening in the future. It's now time to install our gas tank straps, but before we put them under the truck and mark our holes to be able to mount them, when they come shipped in the box, they're actually bent the opposite way, and this is just to make shipping easier. So before putting them under the truck, you're actually gonna have to bend them the complete opposite way. Now grab some gloves before doing this because they are very sharp, so they can cut you pretty easily. When drilling out these holes to be able to mount the gas tank to the frame, you're going to want to work your way up to a 3/8 size drill bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mount the driver's side permanently and then install J-hooks on the passenger side to be able to service anything on the fuel system. Now this kit will come with the J-hooks, but you will have to provide your own hardware to mount it on the driver's side. Now that we have the driver's side of our fuel tank mounted, it's time to go ahead and mount the passenger side. Like I said, we are going to be using J-hooks on the passenger side, and the reason that we're going to be using them is so that if we ever need to service our fuel tank, we can actually drop the bolts from the J-hooks to be able to drop the gas tank on the passenger side. That way we never have to remove the bed to be able to service anything with our fuel tank. Alright, so we got our holes drilled for our J-hooks. It's time to go ahead and install them, tighten them down, and then our gas tank will be officially mounted to our frame. Okay, so we got the gas tank mounted in between the frame rails and the back of the truck, and now it's time to go on to our next step here. So at this point, you're going to want to grab your sending unit, the gasket, and then the locking ring. We're going to go ahead, put the gasket on, sending unit, and then the locking ring, and then we'll work on the next step right after that. As you can see, we got the sending unit installed. Make sure that when you're installing the lock ring that you get each of those 3 tabs under. And then now it's time to go ahead and install the ground, which they make it pretty easy. We can actually just install it right to the frame of the truck. So let's go ahead and get that done. Now, if you remember in the beginning of the video, we disconnected the hard line from inside the cab that goes down to the soft line under the truck for the fuel system. Well, now what we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to run some new fuel line from the tank all the way to that hard line that's under the truck. Just a little tip for all of you at home, if you have any hard edges here and you're worried about the fuel line rubbing against the metal, you can actually grab an old hose, cut it in half, and then slide it over the metal, so then your fuel line is just rubbing it against rubber instead of metal. All right, so we got our fuel system in, we got our fuel lines ran, we have the sending unit in. We're finally getting down to these last couple of steps. Now for our truck, we have an Intellitronics gauge cluster, and when I installed it, I ran a brand new wire going from the gauge cluster to our old sending unit. Now obviously the distance has changed, so I went ahead, ran a new wire quickly, and I ran it under the truck to be able to meet out here to the sending unit. So let's go ahead, run that wire along the frame rail, and then connect it to our sending unit. Now we're ready to install the breather. Simply just grab a gas line and then a filter for the end so no debris or dirt gets kicked up into the tank, and then install it onto our new gas tank. We're starting to get to our final step here. Now what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna measure the distance from each frame rail to the other side, because we're gonna have to modify the bed a little bit to be able to fit over our new gas tank. Okay, so we're marked up from side to side. I gave myself a couple extra inches just because of the rot that we're dealing with on this bed. And then as far as going in, you're gonna wanna go about 1/4 inch in. So let's go ahead, grab the grinder and start cutting away. Well, as you can see, our bed is not in the best condition. As I was cutting away, it literally just started to fall apart, so we ended up getting a pretty ugly cut out of it. I'm gonna go back and clean that up so it doesn't look so bad and hopefully knock out some more of that rust. Now at this point, it's time to go ahead and decide where you're gonna put your filler neck. Now you can either throw it through the bed, put it out the side of the truck, or even in some cases, people will put them in the taillight. They'll actually have the taillight fold down and then there will be your filler neck. We're undecided on exactly what we're gonna do with ours yet, just because our bed really, like I said, isn't in the best condition. So let's go over, wrap everything up, and then go from there. I took some time to go ahead and clean up our wires and our fuel lines to make sure they're in a nice safe spot that I'm never gonna have to worry about. Now at this point, it's time to go ahead and do the filler neck, but we are still a little bit undecided of how we're gonna do our filler neck from one of the ways that I was telling you guys before. So definitely stay tuned because we are gonna have another video coming out on doing the filler neck after doing a gas tank relocation. Now keep in mind when you're doing this job, give yourself a good bit of time out of the day, and if you can get a second set of hands, it definitely won't hurt. Now you can obviously do the job by yourself, but I definitely wish I had a second set of hands at some point. And don't forget, if you're looking for a fuel tank relocation kit, you can buy this exact kit on our website. So it's time to drop a gear and disappear. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, check out the link in the description for all your classic truck part needs.